Hello everybody, I'm Michael Smith, a professor, and welcome to Political Science 510 XA-ZA Nonprofit Management for Summer 2015. This video is in two parts. This first part, in which you see me, is an introduction to the class. I like to do this so that there's a personal touch. In fact, one of your first day of class assignments is to make a video of your own. I hope you'll make a video. If you can't make a video, maybe an audio recording. If you can't do that, an essay. But just introduce yourself. It's nice to give these online classes that personal touch. There are a lot of good things about online teaching. I do have experience teaching online and teaching on Canvas. But the one downside of online teaching is you don't always get that personal touch. And I think that's so important to see the faces and hear the voices of the people you're going to be interacting with in class this semester. So the first part of this video is an introduction, a chance for me to say hello, and a little bit of an introduction to the class, the topic, and the books. The second part of this video is an explanation of Canvas. Now, some of you probably already know how to use Canvas, and so these are going to be easy points for you because I'm actually going to give you some points just for learning how to use Canvas. But if you're new to Canvas, there's no need to be intimidated. I will walk you through Canvas and walk you through where to go to do assignments, and that way you can take this easy first day of class assignment, the one in which I give you points just for learning Canvas, and you'll also see where to go to look for your new assignments throughout the course of this summer session. Every time a new assignment is posted, and where to go to look for your grades and so on and so forth. I'll walk you through all of that. Now, first of all, though, let me welcome you to the class. Nonprofit management is a huge topic. In the second book, really both the first and the second books that we'll read this semester, this is the second one, Bring Back the Bureaucrats by John J. DiIulio. But also you'll see the same thing in the first book, Nonprofits for Hire, The Welfare State in the Age of Contracting by Smith and Lipsky. Really, both these books have a similar theme, different specifics, but similar theme. And the theme is that we have a new way of governing in this country that started, well, it's hard to say when it started, but it certainly gained a lot of steam in the 1980s. And today we see it all over the place. In fact, DiIulio, the author of the second book we read, argues that it's gotten out of hand. We govern by contracting in this country. In other words, back in the day when government decided to provide some service, say some benefit to people that are disabled or have a special need or military veterans or what have you, government would simply provide that service. They might create a new agency, hire new employees, probably using the merit-based civil service system, if you've ever heard of the civil service exam, and they would staff that agency, or they would task an existing agency. Rather than hiring new people, they might give it to an existing agency, a new task, and government employees would actually do the job. We don't do it that way anymore. Sure, we still have government employees. Sure, we still have a role for that. But more and more, many government services, such as those that are need-based, those to people with needs, such as children in the foster care system, for example, or public welfare benefits, nutrition programs, but also a lot of things the U.S. military does, they're done by contractors. They're done either by nonprofits or for-profits that contract with the government. The government then gives them a grant of money, and there's some sort of accountability for how well the job is getting done. Now, there's controversy about how well that accountability works. It probably works better in some cases than in others. But this is a whole new way of governing. And so the first thing we're going to do in this class, with a focus on nonprofits, is talk about how the reliance on governments contracting with nonprofits to provide services, instead of having government employees do it, fundamentally shifts governing. It creates complicated accountability because now, instead of government employees being held accountable for their actions, we have these private sector employees. And government has conditions on these contracts, but in many cases these not-for-profits rely on multiple sources of revenue, not just the contracts. And so the not-for-profits aren't just just arms of the government. They have their own agenda. The people that work for it have their own will, and sometimes they pull in a different direction, even with those government dollars, than what government had in mind. Sometimes government funding can corrupt a nonprofit. You have an effective agency that is twisted off of its focus or given unmanageable work because that's a condition of receiving money on a government contract. Sometimes nonprofits misuse the government money. In other cases, contracting out is an efficient way to do government services that may be a more outside-the-box approach than simply having a government agency do it. So, we have 3 books this semester. The Smith and Lipsky I showed you earlier. This book is the most dated. This one was written in the 1990s, but it's still relevant. And they track the history through the late 20th century of this shift in government from having government agencies provide services directly to reliance on contracting to do that. They talk about the pressures this puts on government, the pressures it puts on nonprofits, and some of the things that managers of nonprofits need to keep in mind in this age of contracting. The next book is the DiIulio book that I again showed you just a few minutes ago. This book is what's called a polemic. He makes a one-sided argument. He's very opinionated. Now, at the back of the book, he invites in some guest contributors, E.J. Dionne Jr. and Charles Murray, who don't necessarily agree with what this book is about, or they don't completely agree, so you get multiple perspectives. But DiIulio himself wrote the rest of the chapters, except the ones at the end, and his argument is that this contracting is completely out of control. You can see from the title, Bring Back the Bureaucrats. What he advocates is getting away from this contracting and going back to having government employees provide services directly instead of through contracts with for-profits and not-for-profits. Now, this book wanders a little bit off the topic of our class here because it's about both for-profits and not-for-profits, but it's certainly relevant to our class, and it's interesting and it's timely, very, very current. It's copyrighted 2014. And DiIulio was in charge of the Faith-Based Initiatives Project under President George W. Bush. This book actually has a bit of a conservative bias to it, which might surprise you because he's advocating hiring more bureaucrats. Now, you wouldn't think that most conservatives would want to hire more bureaucrats because they want to make government smaller. But his argument is having bureaucrats work directly for the government is more accountable and will limit the size of government more than all of these contracts with for-profits and not-for-profits. The last book I don't have my hard copy of yet. I do have my Amazon Kindle copy. If you're interested in ebooks, I believe that all 3 of these books are available as ebooks. I know the last one is because that's what I have, and my hard copy is on order. I don't care, by the way, if you read ebooks or hard copy books, just as long as you do the reading and do the homework and stay caught up. That said, that book is about the 4 frames of management. And that book lays out different management strategies. So if the first 2 books we read, the 2 that I just showed you, are the books that lay out the theory of what this class is about, the shift to contracting as a way of doing government, then the last book, the 4 Frames book, the Bowman and Deal, those are the 2 authors, that book is about how to actually manage a not-for-profit. So if you're looking for a class with a hands-on component that teaches you real practical skills you can use in the job market, really in any management job, even if it's not for a not-for-profit, but in particular with a focus on not-for-profits, well then the Bowman and Deal book is your book. That book is going to have the practical suggestions about how to manage well. And the 4 frames is based on the idea that every problem has multiple perspectives. And looking at a management problem, or really any problem, from multiple perspectives is the best way to get different ideas about how to tackle that problem and how to be an effective leader. In fact, there's a chapter in the book specifically about being an effective leader, and I have assigned that one. I would also note that the Bowman and Deal book is quite a thick book, and in order not to have our workflow runneth over this summer, I have skipped some of the chapters in that book. If you love the book, well, keep it after the end of the semester and read the rest of the chapters. But I have assigned certainly most of the chapters, but I've skipped a few in order not to have you get an unmanageable workload over the course of the summer. Now, what about the practical mechanics of this class? Well, in just a little bit, I'm going to turn the camera around toward my computer screen and show you Canvas. But let me just talk about the basics. The way I do this class is the following. Every day I will post the next day's class assignment. Today is Monday. It's the first day of class. The first day of class assignments are already posted, and later today I'm going to put up the second day of class assignments. So every assignment is put up a day ahead. There's a reading, usually one chapter. Every now and then it'll be 2 chapters, but they'll be short chapters. But it's usually one chapter. We'll work our way through all 3 books, and as I said, in the third one, we won't read all the chapters, but we'll read most. After you do the reading, then there is some homework, and you do that all on Canvas. Some of it will involve multiple choice quizzes. In the second part of this video, I'm going to show you how to take multiple choice quizzes in Canvas. You may already know you're going to get some easy points if that's the case. But there will also be written work. For the short little essays, what I ask you to do is write those in your word processor, proofread them, write them in multiple drafts, spell and grammar check them, make sure everything looks good, and then cut and paste them into the text box on Canvas. Don't type them directly into the text box. You won't get a chance to spell and grammar check and do a second draft and so forth. Even a short essay deserves a second draft. For the longer ones, what I ask you to do is write them in your word processor and then save them as either doc, docx, PDF, or if you don't have any of those choices, you can do a text file. But I'd prefer doc, docx, or PDF. Text will work. And then upload those to Canvas. And that way I can use something called the speed grader, which I'll show you in the second part of this video. And the speed grader will enable me to go through and quickly grade your work and actually put comments on it, just as if you'd submitted a hard copy of a paper. I can embed comments in your text and then put comments at the end, and also, of course, your points total. And so, again, every day, look for the assignment to go up for the next day, probably sometime in the afternoon, now through the end of the first week of August, that's how long our class goes, and then do it. There's also a syllabus. It's posted in Canvas under the syllabus link. Once again, in the second part of this video, I'm going to show you that. And all of that is available to you, and I look forward to dialoguing with you. I get a lot of email from students. I do put my cell text number on my syllabus so you can communicate with me that way. There are no fixed meetings times for this class. Just do the work and put it up on Canvas, and I'll grade it. And if you have any questions, email me. Find that syllabus link and click it. It's msmith3@emporia.edu is my email, and it's also on the syllabus. And let me know what your questions are, and we'll get them answered. If that doesn't work, you can call me or text me. The second part of this video will be posted separately on YouTube because YouTube prefers videos 15 minutes or shorter. And in that one, you'll see the camera on my computer screen, and I'm going to teach you the basics of using Canvas and how to do your assignments for the first day of class. So, click on that second link, and I will see you in just a minute.